Okay, welcome back to Data Management 3. This is our second video. We're going to pick up right where we left off, and we're going to work with this, with the second sort of SPEC data set. We're going to work with the replication data from our productive pacifist paper that's forthcoming at International Studies Quarterly. And we are going to just load this data in, right? So because this is an R data file, we can just load it in with the load command, and we'll see this data object pop up over here. That's our replication data. Take a look at the structure of it. See, okay, here's all the variable names. We've got a data set, so it's a data frame with 16,000 observations, 33 variables. Okay. This video just is doing a little bit more complicated versions of what we've done before, right? So what if we want to compare some regions over time to some countries over time? So we want to have two different units of analysis in the same data set, and we want to do some collapsing, not just by a single variable, but by two variables, by region and year, right? So we're still finding ways to summarize our data. And this is fairly common, that we want to compare maybe some averages across unlike things, compare some regional averages to some single country trends, right? That's some stuff we do fairly frequently. So let's take a look at this. We're also going to, we don't currently have a region dummy in this productive pacifist data, so I'm going to use the country code package actually to append a region variable. So that's what's going on in this mutate command here. So I'm creating a new variable region, but then for what I stick into region, I'm going to use the country code command and say I want to base my new variables on Gleditch Ward number. That's my country identifier variable in the current data set. And I want to append GWN, which is the Gleditch Ward number from the country code package, just to make sure they're lining up. And so that's sort of this one-to-one. So Gleditch Ward number is matching GWN, right? So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pull in this region variable. Okay, so that's what's going on in this line of code. We're going to group by not one variable here, but two. So this is grouped by region and year, right? And then we're going to use the same summarize at function. And we're going to use our continuous measure of land orientation. And we're going to use this second land variable, which actually, I don't even remember how we put that one together. So I just wanted to grab more than one. My apologies for not looking back at our code book here. All right, we're going to take the mean of these variables, and then we're going to do the same thing of the na.rm equals true. So if it's na, we're going to remove it, right, before we take that average. Okay, so far, so simple, right? But we don't want all the regions at the end of the day. In this figure, we just want to compare Asia to Europe, to China, to the United States. Those are the four lines we want to put across this figure over time. So this is going to give us our annual averages for a couple of regions, but let's kick out the regions we don't need, right? So we're just going to use this filter to say, let's only keep East Asia, let's only keep it if it's equal to East Asian Pacific, or if it's equal to Europe and Central Asia. So those are two of our regions. We're just going to keep those regions. And then when I'm done with this, I want to be able to take these region averages and merge it back in with some country level data. And I'm going to need Gleditch Ward numbers to do that, right? When I want to use my merging commands, right, and I want to use like a full join, I'm going to need to tell it, let's do that by Gleditch Ward number and year, so that I can have like my US and my China lines. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this data set, which no longer has Gleditch Ward numbers, right? We collapsed down to region, right? I'm going to give it Gleditch Ward numbers. So I'm going to use mutate, create this new GWNO variable, and I'm going to use an if-else function. I'm going to say if the region is East Asian Pacific, I'm going to give it a Gleditch Ward number of 1,000. If it's not East Asia Pacific, I'm going to give it a Gleditch Ward number of 2,000. And I use these sort of arbitrary high 4-digit Gleditch Ward numbers because the Gleditch Ward numbering system goes, the highest one is 990, so it doesn't go up. So these are 3-digit numbers. So I'm going to give these regions 4-digit numbers just for the purpose of letting them have a number so I can stick them in there. At the end of the day, the data set I need to make this picture is only going to have 4 different country units. It's only going to have 4 different geographic units: US, China, East Asia, and Europe. So as long as East Asia and Europe have numbers that are different than the US number, which is 2, and China, which I think is 710, as long as there are any other numbers than that, we're going to be fine. So I chose 1,000 and 2,000, pretty arbitrary. Okay, so let's run this block of code, and we'll create this dat_reg means, so the regional means of object. So okay, we've got that. And let's take a look at the structure of what we've made. So the thing about when we summarize is that we don't end up with a data frame anymore. What we end up with is a tibble, which is just a simplified table, right? So a tibble, you can read up on that type of object, but it's a simplified table. Like I said, what we're heading toward here is we're going to need to merge these regional averages back with some annual, some country year information on these variables. And so, so we want to have it as a data frame so that we can, because these commands, the full join command we're going to use, it's going to need a data frame. So fortunately, to go from a tibble to a data frame is pretty simple when it's already set up kind of in this nice rectangular format. So we can just use this as data frame command. And so we're just going to say, I'm going to overwrite dat_reg means with dat_reg means, but as a data frame this time. So I'm going to run this line of code. And now I've got a dat_reg mean object up here still, but it's a data frame instead of a tibble. And that'll just allow us to use that full join. Okay, so now let's grab these. Now we just want to grab out a couple of individual countries, right? Right now we've got data on 185 countries or so. We just want 2 of them. So that's pretty simple. That's a filter command, right? So we're going to use select to just keep a couple of variables. We're going to use filter to just keep a couple of countries. So we're going to select latitude, number, year, and these 2 measures of land orientation. And then we use filter to say, let's keep it if latitude numbers equal 2, that's the US, or latitude number equals 710, which is China. Okay, so we're just going to make a much smaller object, which is dat US and China. I'm just going to keep US and China and just for these couple of variables. So now we've got this very small data frame. And if we look at the structure of it, right? Okay, we just have 4 variables. We got 400 observations, right? Still a lot of years, but we just have the 2 countries. But this is still a data frame, right? Because we didn't use a summarize command, so we didn't collapse this data down. We just selected out of it. So this is still a data frame. We don't need to go through that process of turning it back into a data frame. So we have 2 data frames. They both have latitude, number, and year, uniquely identifies observations in both of them. So they're set up in a way that we can merge them together now, right? So we're going to use this full join command. So I'm going to create a new object called for_figure. This is the one we're going to be able to go and make our figure with. I've got to specify the 2 different data frames I'm going to merge together. So the dat on US and China and the dat on the regional means. So those 2 data objects, I'm going to merge them by latitude, number, and year, which are those unique identifiers. Okay, so that's our our merge command here. I'm going to create this new for_figure object, which now has 800 observations of 7 variables. Okay. So I've got this for_figure object. It's all ready to go to make a picture. In the lab, what we like to do is we like to separate out our data management from our data analysis from our figure creation, right? So in any given project, we've got all 3 of those things going on. We like those in different R scripts. So now we've created this new data object. We want the R script that actually makes the picture to be a separate script. And so what we want to do is we want to save this data object so we can use it in a different R script. And we're going to save it as an R data file so that it's around later. Because otherwise, sure, this for_figure object exists over in my environment right now, but as soon as I close R, poof, that's gone, right? I actually want to save this file. So we're just going to use the save command here. So we're going to say, this is the data object I want to save, is for_figure. Here's the file name, and I'm going to say, so the default it's starting with is my my file path, which goes all the way to that training data folder. Well, within that training data folder is a figure output subfolder, a training output subfolder, so that we don't junk up the training data folder with everything we're kicking out. And so we've got this training data subfolder and then the name of the file I want to create. And per our conversations about organization for collaboration, right, I want to be pretty detailed in this file name. China, US, Europe, and North American means, okay. And my initials, and then the date, okay? So it's kind of as much detail as I can provide in a reasonable file name length. Okay, so I'm going to run that. And what we'll see, I'm going to go ahead and, the way you'll know your save command works is you go and you check in that training output folder, and I should see a new R data file with this typo, right? If I don't, then I need to figure out what's going wrong. And that is how you get a data set ready for figure creation. So thank you for being with me.